And now to Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, where an overnight barrage of Russian missiles and drones has killed at least 2 people. Ukraine's military said it shot down all 28 missiles and most of the 16 drones launched at the city. Debris fell on buildings. Officials said it was Russia's most powerful aerial assault on Kyiv in several months. Meanwhile, the Kremlin says Ukraine has launched one of the biggest wave of drone strikes on Russian territory since the start of the war. The drones hit at least 6 regions inside Russia. The strikes destroyed military transport aircraft.
A drone attack on a Russian airbase, 700 kilometers from Ukraine. Russian anti-aircraft missiles repel some of the drones, but 4 Russian aircraft on the ground sustained damage. The Kremlin was quick to assign blame.
The actions of the Ukrainian regime will not go unpunished. Russian law enforcement structures are investigating and properly documenting all facts of shelling by Ukrainian militants of Russian regions and their other criminal actions.
Strikes on military assets inside Russia have increased in recent months to support Ukraine's ground counteroffensive, which has been meeting stiff resistance from Russian troops. The most recent drone attack appears to be the biggest on Russian soil since the start of the war. The airbase is located in the Pskov region on the border with NATO countries Estonia and Latvia. The ramp-up of drone attacks in recent months have focused on the Bryansk and Belgorod regions bordering Ukraine, as well as Moscow itself. The attacks in the heart of Russia's capital have put the city on edge, whereas attacks on airfields and border regions help cut off supply lines for Russian troops. The attacks on Moscow bear a more symbolic importance. Several times, the glittering high-rises of Moscow's business district have been the target of drones, reminding the elite and all Muscovites that they are at war.
The defence analyst Marina Miron from King's College London gave me her take on the latest drone attack on Russia.
Well, the damage of the attack is unprecedented because the Ukrainian attack was targeting some military sites. One of them, according to Russian reports, was some factory producing electronic chips. And then there was an attack on the Pskov airfield, on the headquarters of the GRU in that same region. And it has been partially successful in degrading Russia's capabilities when it comes to air power. And the reason for that is because Ukraine is lacking that air power capacity. The best option they have is to utilize something that is much cheaper. And I mean, one drone is about 50 times cheaper than a missile, such as Kalibr, for instance, to inflict damage using this asymmetric technique.
So why can't Russia defend itself from these drone attacks?
That is one of the questions what the Russians are probably asking themselves, and the answer lies in the type of drones that are being used. So according to some Russian and also Ukrainian statements, the drones, or some of them that have been used in these recent attacks, are made of cardboard. Those are Australian drones, which are described as kamikaze drones. Normally, they are not designated for military purposes per se, but they can carry a payload. And because those drones are very cheap and made of cardboard and rubber, they can evade signals and thermal imagings and radars. So they are being used to provoke Russia's air defenses so that the attacks can be more effective when more expensive drones have then the green light to fly through when the air defenses have fired out their missiles at those cheap drones. And this is probably the reason why these attacks have been more effective, because detection is not advanced enough to get those low-flying drones.
Now, Russia has said that these Ukrainian drones couldn't have flown such a distance without the help from the West. Is that true?
Well, it is probably not surprising for Russia to also try to implicate the West, because the whole idea was to show the West that Ukraine is using Western equipment to attack Russia. However, Ukraine has its own capabilities when it comes to long-range drones, such as the UJ-22, which is Ukrainian-made, and it would be plausible for Ukraine to use that drone because it has a reach of 800 kilometers. So, in theory, it could fly on autopilot from the Ukrainian territory all the way up to Moscow. That being said, for the information space, it's important for Russia to stress that point, because Ukraine striking Russian territory, even if those are military targets, can have a potential political fallout for Ukraine, and that can serve as an impediment for countries like the United States to provide long-range weapons to Ukraine, specifically ATACMS in this case.
Marina Miron there, defence analyst from King's College London. Thank you very much, Marina.
Thank you for having me.